Poetry Center, bringing poetry to Paterson since 1980 at Passaic County Community College.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Gillen. Welcome to the Distinguished Poetry Series at Passaic County Community College. And we are live streaming our writer today. And the poet today is Nicole Santalucia. And she is the author of The Book of Dirt from New York Quarterly Books, Spoiled Meat from Head Mistress Press, and Because I Did Not Die, Bordighera Press. She is a recipient of the Charlotte Mew Chapbook Prize and the Edna St. Vincent Millay Poetry Prize. Her work has appeared in publications such as the Best American Poetry, the Cincinnati Review, the Rumpus, Columbia Journal, as well as other places. She teaches poetry at Shippensburg University in Pennsylvania and has led poetry workshops at the Cumberland County Prison, Shippensburg Public Library, Boys and Girls Club, and local nursing homes. I have to say about Nicole that she manages to combine a kind of new school surreal aesthetic with, I'll call it the Maria Gillen narrative poetry aesthetic from Binghamton University. So between the two things, she comes up with this very explosive, very risky, edgy kind of work that still makes you cry. So I think that welcome Nicole and listen to her poetry.
Thanks, Maria. And I want to thank all the participants who were part of the workshop before this and all of the wonderful, beautiful poems that you took the risk to write and share with all of us. And Maria, we were talking about in the workshop beforehand, the Maria narrative, and we were talking about the Maria party, having the Maria Gillen party. Maria Gillen party. One and only. Ode to Maria. Huston and Wiebe shared the title of this year's golf tournament in Binghamton, New York. This is just as important as the headline about gay marriage in this town. When I read the paper this morning, I thought it was funny how Huston and Wiebe rhymes with fucking dweeb. Then I realized that this was the golf tournament sponsored by Dick's Sporting Goods, and how it was just yesterday that my wife delivered a basket of cookies for one of their raffle prizes, and that some fucking dweeb would win it. The thought of some guy eating my wife's cookies makes me a little jealous. I realized the front page of the paper was folded in half, and I almost missed the article about how the sewage board okays safety inspection. Not only is this town going to shit and fucking dweebs are winning golf tournaments, but my morning is dragging on. I'm drinking too much coffee, which reminds me of just the other day when we were standing in line at the city clerk's office and how I had to pee really bad. The bathrooms were locked, and I thought about you, Maria, how you were the one who told us in your perfect scratchy voice to go get married. You are the one who I always run into in the bathrooms on campus, because we both pee all of the time. You know, all that limoncello and those double shots of espresso. Maria, you are the one who I want to run up and say, I hope you are proud. I married a good Italian girl. So, which is all very true story, every single second of it. And a lot of prompt writing and poems that show up in this book happen in workshops with Maria. I'll read another one. Prostitutes. Maria, there's an ex-prostitute sitting at the table in your poetry workshop at the university. In fact, you had lunch with her the other day. The two of you shared a turkey sandwich. she put mustard on toasted bread for you. And when you told her about your agita, it made her feel safe. It was like caressing her on the arm. Maria, your poem about not knowing how to talk to the prostitute in New York City, the poem about how you awkwardly waved goodbye, blew her a kiss as you walked out of the bookstore onto the street. That prostitute needs your poem, so a little part of her will get off the street. So thanks for those prompts, Maria, and this experience, and writing in Binghamton. I'm going to shift gears in a moment or two here, but I'll read a couple more where I'm writing in Pennsylvania, which is a whole other shit show, I guess, is a way to think about it. Hell of an experience. But I'm going to read the title poem of the book. Because I did not die. Because I did not die from burning my fingers on a glass crack pipe, the scars on my fingertips throb when I wash the dishes or shovel the sidewalk for my neighbor. There are days that have gone missing and tattoos dripping off the body I left on the corner of Carroll Street. A mile and a half away from where I stand now at the university, shaking hands with the dean, my lungs tighten as if I've never taken off the straitjacket, and someone else's voice escapes my throat, says, "Thank you." And I want to tell him how I've never gotten the spiders to stop crawling out of my eyes and nose, that they have taken over my face in my sleep, how my skin feels like cracked cement in a parking lot full of uprooted trees. I want to tell the dean who is congratulating me how I've been counting time, how when I lived in New York City, heroine Helen lived on the corner of 87th Street and West End Avenue. She was sprawled out on the sidewalk, newspapers stuffed in her shirt and pants to stay warm. Every morning for years, I stepped over Helen because I couldn't save her. I want to tell the dean that part of my commute this morning was devoted to her. Okay, this next one is called The Cannoli Machine at the Brooklyn Detention Center, which is it was at the time a very real thing. I don't know if it's still there, but this is from maybe 15 years ago or so. The Cannoli Machine in the Brooklyn Detention Center is for the visitors. My dad waited in line when he went to visit my brother. He didn't know he'd have to empty his pockets, take off his pinky ring, and untie his shoes. This is the first time I saw my father afraid, but he wasn't too afraid to stand in line with all the other fathers in front of the cannoli machine. He ate 2 or 3 and noticed a little white cream filling on his cheek when he saw himself on the surveillance camera. He noticed that his white t-shirt was washed too many times and was starting to turn gray, that his socks didn't match. I didn't know this was how fathers were made. So I'm going to read a couple more out of here. This next one, Brooklyn Detention Center, pops up again. It's called I've Got the World on a String. And I did used to really run around singing Frank Sinatra as a little kid and putting on concerts for my family. It's called I've Got the World on a String. I ran through the living room in Dad's loafers and black suit, belting Frank Sinatra's I've Got the World on a String into a broomstick. And when I look at your feet sticking out of your orange jumpsuit, I remember what it was like to put on Dad's gray socks and tighten my suspenders. I wish I could give you this costume. It made me feel like a tough guy. Now, in the visiting room at the Brooklyn Detention Center, you sit next to Dad, describe the pains in your feet. You say how there are no toenails left, and when you were arrested, you weren't wearing any shoes. 1 foot the size of an elephant, $10,000 duct taped to your leg. And I can only imagine how ugly the visiting room is and how there's probably a stain on the ceiling that looks like a chicken with its head cut off. I'll read one more out of this book, and then I'm going to shift over to the Book of Dirt. This is called Kids on the South Side. There are little boys with nicknames like Old Man Joe and Gramps hanging onto this chain-linked fence. It's like they are on the inside of the belly, trapped in their own guts, looking out. Their arms and legs scorched from lit cigarettes and car lighters. I don't know how boys survive when their hands are nailed to the walls of Johnson City, New York, where people like me are considered roadkill for these kids to play with. When they crawl through the hole in the fence, they are born again, and I can hardly breathe. I was a park attendant when I was a kid at the park, one of the parks on Ackley Ave on the way up to Binghamton University, and would see kids struggling often. And then my own struggles weave through. I lied. I'm going to read one last one. It's called one last one called Genealogy from the book from Because I Did Not Die. My wife warns me about sitting on public toilets as if there's fresh sperm waiting to jump inside me. I never tell her that on long days my legs get tired, that sometimes I carry a pile of books into the stall and don't set them on the floor, that my skin makes contact. And she tells me to go wash my ass. And I say, I'm afraid to have children too. This conversation repeats about once or twice a month. Every time I'm in a public bathroom, I think of names we'd pick for our children. Saints' names like Ita, Claudia, Madeline, Maria, Lucy, Rosalia. I list all our crazy Italian aunts and grandmothers who had numb fingertips and eye sockets that ached. I think about the patron saint of Palermo, Rosalia, who lived in a cave, and how our cave is no longer dark. I think about how St. Lucy's eyes were gouged out before she was executed. How St. Maria Goretti said she'd rather die than submit to Alexander, and she was stabbed in the gut. I think of how Cousin Maria brings her drunk boyfriend from Texas to Christmas dinner, and how we all shut up when he enters the room. How my grandfather told me he was in love with another woman before he decided to marry Nana. Every time I enter a public bathroom, I wonder what it would have been like to gouge my eyes out and serve them like Italian grapes to the children our grandparents would have had if they married someone else. Okay, I'm going to move on over to the Book of Dirt here. I'll start with the title poem. You have now begun reading the Book of Dirt. And on the title page, it reads, the opposite of prostituting is when I learned how to read. It was like sucking a lemon. I spit out pale yellow seeds, open the door to earth, look out the window. All my gay symptoms rally in the library parking lot where I swallow my name, blindfold my votes, and line them up against the wall. I go to the county jail where I teach women to write their guts on styrofoam and cinder block and floor wax. I write Commonwealth and Red State and Ode on the edge of disaster, where clouds cast a shadow in the shape of a knife. I cut the faggot label out of my shirts, slice open plastic bags stuffed with childhood and grass clippings from a blue state. This is the book where a gay girl is in another closet, where the doorknobs fall off and the queer goes for a walk on a rainbow leash. I mosey from dream to dirt to dream and see the jar of hallelujahs glowing on my nightstand. The opposite of gay is a seedless lemon spiked on a galvanized nail. There's a penny resting on my tongue, or maybe that's the remnants of a dream I can't quite remember. When I wake up, there's a giant bitter orange tree flowering at the foot of the bed. Cold, hearty fruit drops between my wife and me. We empty the jar of hallelujahs and cross-pollinate citrus with survival. We don't belong, says the fruit. We don't belong is the logic of other books. We survive on the resemblance of other oranges. Depending on ripeness, our skin peels and our blood deepens. The sweet orange is not a wild fruit. The pomelo is its maternal parent. Our root systems twist together below ground. This next poem, and to circle back to, I know all the folks listening might be in the workshop earlier, but I'm talking to the people who were in the workshop earlier about fitting into the word or not fitting into a word or a stereotype or a part of our lives. This is called From the Book of Dirt. Many of the poems in the book are called From the Book of Dirt. And it's about not fitting into the word wife. If I'm a wife and my wife is a wife, who vacuums the house and cleans the dishes? Which wife dusts and which one does laundry? Who cleans the dirt off of the dirt? Which one of us sucks dirt and which one spits out dirt? Which one of us doesn't fit into the word wife? If wife is carved into the dirt, whose left breast falls off and whose right eye is dug out? If the wind is prayer, if dirt is 50% lesbian and 50% void, if it never rains, how do mosquitoes suck the gay out? If we live below ground in our dirt house, do we get squatters' rights? Can we sue the land if the land is our witness? If we inhale the earth, if our bodies are silent, tell us what we own. If the law of the dirt is dirt, if wives travel west of the dirt, what customary law influences property rights? If individual grains of sediment never move, if the force of gravity pulls us deeper into the dirt, if there's no gust of wind or water or ice, our marriage will never sculpt itself into a mountain. If the valley of dead women in the dirt has been our destination this whole time, all we had to do was walk barefoot in our backyard. Okay. So moving my first book, Because It Did Not Die, really goes back and forth from Binghamton to living in New York City and then Binghamton and back. And this one is really rooted in Pennsylvania, in a pocket that's a pretty conservative pocket that's been oppressive. And in the county I live in, Franklin County, it was just the other day where they passed an ordinance to protect LGBTQ folks in the area. One of the few counties that have had this, but it's very much rooted in this space of in this particular part of Pennsylvania. This is called Notes from the Commonwealth. The cuts on my heels sting from walking barefoot through news headlines. Just yesterday, I fell in love. I fell on the sidewalk. I fell into a pile of jackknives. I've been soaking my feet in a bucket of rocks for 15 years. My arms and legs and feet wrapped in gauze, layers of skin, wads of crumpled dollar bills, newspapers, toilet paper, tucked into my sleeves and socks. I mean, I held my wife's hand when we went for a walk, and someone threw rocks at us. Then someone else threw glass, then a soda can, then a styrofoam cup full of ice. It was a Sunday morning. No, a Tuesday. It was a Friday when we pretended to hold hands. We dreamed that nothing could cut us apart, not the knives, not the news, not the gravel. It was a Wednesday. The traffic was slower than usual. At the sidewalk, at the crosswalk, we waited for the light. We waited for all of the light, but we were looking down instead of up. We were looking for a softer, silent rock, or a saint, or a rabbi. We searched the cracks in the road and found dust. We picked up handfuls of soot and worshipped the street corner. In this town, wind and rocks and arms and feet fight like red-tailed hawks. Every time we hold hands, prayer happens. I also, and clearly, I think it's been pretty notable so far, write about my own struggles in past with, and my brothers with addiction that runs in the family. This is called Red State. Sometimes street lamps flicker outside of my bathroom window. Old hallucinations rattle out of my left eye and my dead body trickles out of the other. Sometimes I wake up from a drunk dream. It smells like dandelions and wet dirt. Sometimes I dig deeper into the dream and my brain falls into a barrel of wine. I splash, convince myself to stay in the holy water until I ferment. If I do get out alive, it cost me my lungs, both my hands, at least one leg, my eyesight, and my tongue. It takes all my breath. Sometimes I wake up from a drunk dream, my fingers stained red. I must have scratched my legs all night as if I could scrape my way out of this disease. I take a shower, get dressed, change the sheets, then check my email. Every message says that I didn't drink the wine, that it guzzled me. Just before sunrise, the street lamps stop flickering. A dog barks, a garbage truck drives by. It's Tuesday, July 19th. I hurtled out of sleep to get here. Every so often I hitchhike in a dream, alone on the side of the road. I wait and wait. I'm in the distance looking for what's left of a car accident from the night before. A shredded tire, shortness of breath, a shirt sleeve torn in half. I expect to find a shoe in the tall grass. There are always so many shoes on the side of the road. Every time I get to this part of the dream, I wake up. It's like I take my whole body off so that I don't get lost in the wreckage. A little drink here for a second. Okay. From the Book of Dirt. Tractors plow through pastures every day. I call my mother on the potato, and somewhere in the earth there are more potatoes. At the center of every potato is the sound of nothing, the same nothing that my mother prays for on long winter nights like this one. The sky hangs over our phone call like beef in a freezer, minus the head, hooves, viscera, lungs, and heart. We talk about how warm air blows out of train stations in New York City and wonder if Lenny will evaporate or shrivel as clouds of train breath linger. In most potatoes, there's a fist of terror, the same terror that wakes my father in the middle of the night. Is he having night terrors about Lenny again? I ask her. We pray for nothing between potatoes and cow shit, between a mother's fingers and a son's toes. Between the streets I roam in small town Pennsylvania, where horses puff through their giant nostrils as they pull entire families through winter. Before we hang up the phone, a horse trots by me, slips on the road, and breaks a leg. I don't say it, but I worry if the drugs bit off my brother's life, if his toe is tagged, if there are mashed potatoes crusting over in a pot in my mother's kitchen sink, if I will hear the gunshot that takes the horse out of its misery. Oof, I haven't read that one in a long time. Okay, here's a poem I wrote in a workshop with my students a few years back at Shippensburg. I remember the students' poems. He was great. Chandler. Chandler's poem about a gold chain is a sinker on a fishing line in the classroom where fluorescent lights suck smoke out of my lungs. Smoke that I inhaled 20 years ago is falling out of my mouth. It smears the chalkboard. This smoke was lodged behind my voice box. I turned the lights off and barbed wire appears. It cuts my desk in half and stops me from telling Chandler that I don't know what to do about the man in Wyoming who got fired for being gay. We can't stop being gay. After class, I buy apples from an Amish stand on Route 11 and feel silenced. God regurgitated the batch of apples I brought home to my wife. She made me a pie. I pitch up, a little pitch up there at the end. She made me a pie. She did, actually. Okay, let's read a couple more and we'll call it quits after that. We're just getting close to the end here. I'm going to read, I didn't plan on reading this one, but I'm gonna. Keystone Ode with #MeToo in it. I won't repeat the hashtag, but it appears every time I say the phrase Me Too. So Me Too cuts her ponytail off, walks into a bar and takes a seat next to Me Too. And the bartender serves Me Too whiskey from an eyedropper she pulls straight out of her purse. But it turns out Me Too was already in every purse because Me Too comes as a picture inside every wallet. Me Too carries tweezers everywhere she goes, plucks chin hairs before her picture is taken. Me Too slides into a bra strap, tucks into a sock, falls out of a pocket, folds into a shirt sleeve, gets lost in a discount rack. Me Too shuts up, drinks. Me Too never loses the memory. Me Too. Like when my high school soccer coach hijacked my shin pads and cleats, he drained the water cooler, sucked the orange slice out of my mouth, the warehouse out of my mind, the metal cage out of my lungs, the Ferris wheel seat that flips inside my gut. Yes, he resigned. I was a goalie. I wanted to tell his wife. I wanted to cut his tongue out, rip his face off. My torso hardened into tree bark. When my shirt came off, her torso hardened into tree bark. When her shirt came off, she wanted his wife to yell, but it was Sunday, then Tuesday, and 16 is hard pavement. Her head is my head against the curb. My hair wrapped around her throat. I was 16. I swear I never kissed back. So Me Too wants to tell his wife, wants his daughter's name not to be Nicole. Me Too was kicked off the soccer team. He ran for mayor as Democrat, just like Me Too. So you lost the sour taste of being a teenager, Me Too? Me Too. Now she stands in front of a classroom 20 years later with hair down to her knees. And when a student says Me Too, she imagines her soccer cleats dangling from his rear view mirror as he gags on a wad of her hair. I'm going to end with one last poem. It's the last poem in the book of Dirt. On first having read the book of Dirt. On first having read the book of Dirt and loaded the batteries into the flashlight, I'd take off my shoes, put on my skin. My feet listened to the earth, gather digging tools in hollow land, check the ground for homophobia and women. 25 rounds of ammunition, dry dirt, a forest floor, a myth where queers get to the other side. The dirt without grass has no name. I've walked there picking bones. First the walnut tree and then hot bullets. It is black, then brown, then earth. My face, our dream, you, splitting in half again and again and again. I can't find my shovel, so I dig for it. We wake up touching in the dirt, in the book, our hands reaching from under as if we could actually be together. The thing I came for is on the other side of the dirt, but there's no water or thirst or surface or air or sun. This is the place where there's more wreckage, more bodies. If there was a ladder, I'd climb out of the dirt. I'd gather courage to reappear and probably find myself in the middle of Pennsylvania, carrying an atlas of the difficult world and a flashlight with dead batteries. And that's where I'm going to stop. And I just want to say thank you again. So thank you all for listening, for those of you who are out there in live stream land. And thank you, Maria. And thanks everyone for writing poems with me today who participated in the workshop earlier. You're muted, Maria. I don't know if you were trying to talk, but thank you.
I'm trying to talk and I couldn't find the unmute button.
That's okay.
Thank you so much, Nicole. You're wonderful. Your workshop was really interesting and the reading was beautiful. And it's such a pleasure to see you again.
You too. I love you.
Love you.